Hi there, and welcome to Bodhrán Around the Globe. I'll be your instructor, Colin Hart, and today we'll be looking at the Brazilian music Bossa Nova and taking some ideas from that and trying to apply them to one of my favorite drums, the Bodhrán. Just to give you a little background on Bossa Nova, it's a movement that you find emerging in the early 60s and eventually spread across the world. They had a Bossa Nova craze here in the US and other places as well. Um, so it was quite popular for a period of time. Last time, or a couple lessons ago, I did work on samba. And so a lot of those rhythms have a driving pulse. They're dance oriented, processional, sometimes for the larger, um, for carnival parades. And in the batucada, or the percussion section, you have tons and tons of drums, from bells to snares to shakers, bass drums, uh, the cuica, which makes a kind of squeaking noise as well. So it's quite a powerful sound. Bossa Nova is interesting because it takes some of the rhythms of samba and slows them down a little bit. They sit back in the beat more. It's a little bit more laid back. It has more of a jazz approach to playing samba rhythms. And so it's really that sort of fusion. There's a jazz sensibility to the way of playing samba rhythms in like I said, a more laid back fashion. Percussion wise, it's typically the drum kit, um, borrowing from jazz. Harmonically, there's a lot of jazz influence, for writers like Antonio Jobim's one of the most famous, obviously, but Gilberto, and there's a wide range, assortment of not only composers but musicians who play it. And so the ornamentation, in terms of playing it, the arrangements, a lot of it is heavily influenced by jazz. Um, and so, you have your rhythm section, bass, piano, guitar is often featured. Piano is kind of more sparse. The guitar plays a lot of finger picking patterns that help drive the rhythm, and it once again, it's in a laid back fashion. Um, but it keeps moving. There is a dance sensibility to it. It's just not quite as explicit and in your face as some of the samba patterns we hear in different arrangements. So we'll take a look at this, think about some of the ideas, and think about how to incorporate this possibly on the Bodhrán. When we listen to some great recordings, now there's a whole host of recordings. You go through Joe Beam's whole catalog is wonderful. Really a great marriage between jazz and the samba rhythms are really bossa nova that we find. Stan Getz' work with Gilberto, his album Jazz Samba Encore with Lorinda Almeida, just to name a few, you really hear a beautiful marriage between bossa nova and jazz. And some of the playing is really interesting. There's a lot of brushwork on the drum kits that kind of keep this sense that you can hear some of the shakers, you can hear some of the patterns maybe played on the bell, and even some of the guitar picking patterns as well, that you might hear from samba, but it's played, like I said, in more of a jazz context. So we're going to try and figure that out now. So we'll dig in. So Brazilian music, particularly when we're thinking about stuff coming from Rio, samba, bossa nova, has its own sense of swing. It's not necessarily the same as what you find in jazz. There's different ways to swing and whatnot. So that's its own discussion. But if we're thinking about Brazilian music, it does have a sense of swing to it. Sort of a mnemonic device is sort of shakaraka, so you can think of 1, 2, 3 for 1, 2, 3, or shakaraka, shakaraka. It's almost falling into itself. So 1, 2, 3 for 1, 2, 3, boom, 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 boom. And I'm just using a brush on here, just muting it. Remember that from the samba lesson, where you're having that bass drum on the 2 and the 4. So that's going on. So that general undercurrent. And I have the brush here, and you'll hear this on a lot of, where the brush is really pressed into the drum head, and you're gonna mute it, or you move your hand around. So that kind of undercurrent, you can change the tempo on it, obviously, is there. That if you have a shaker, that would be going on there as well. Now, there's really not much of a bell pattern. You remember from samba we had sort of boom, boom, and there's a variety of variations on that, obviously. But just to kind of give you a basic, we see some of those rhythms are kind of transferred to different instruments. Some of the guitar picking patterns we hear, like and I'm keeping it as the thumb. You can just do that, or boom, 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 boom. That also, that pattern of boom, boom. It similarly kind of connects with that shaker pattern I was talking about of 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, where your thumb is doing 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, boom, boom. So you can do that. You could even do 1, 2, 3, boom, 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 boom. So you can get that 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, like a kick drum basically, if you want to do that. And you can get as complicated as you like. Sometimes you hear in samba pagoji, you hear boom, boom. They're playing with more of a hand drum there. But anyway, so these patterns are there, but like I said, they're not quite in your face. They're sitting back. If we want to think about the beat, right? So if this is, right, we're just keeping straight time. You can hear as I move further back in the beat. We're laying back. It's a conscious effort to position yourself in relation to where the beat is, and then you're moving back further. So it's relational, and you're understanding you're sitting back more. So instead of doing bamba dun 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 dun, you know that you're not going to, you're falling behind with it, just a hair. I mean, it's a stylistic thing. You find it in jazz quite a bit, and how far back you sit before it becomes too much is up to you. It's something to play with in terms of time and thinking relationally, and obviously these sort of concepts, polyrhythmic concepts, and sitting back in relation to this sort of pulse, once again comes from West Africa and the great influence there in Brazil. So having that jazz sensibility, which is interesting for, I think, playing some of these rhythms for bossa nova, is that you are sitting back. It has a sense of swing to it, and yet there's these patterns that we recognize from samba going on. So those are some approaches to doing it. Now, one of the other patterns you'll find, and these change from song to song, so it's up to you to kind of figure out how you're going to play them and in what sense. But it's a nice opportunity for brushwork. And that pattern I was just playing there, right? You could also do, if you want to do 2 upstrokes and 2 down, so boom, boom. And so you can do that, boom, boom, cha-cha, boom, boom, cha-cha, and you can, boom, 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 if that's how you want to play it. It takes a little while to kind of get that up, up, down, down, but it's a good pattern to know, and it helps out with other sticking for different music. So, if you get a chance, it's something you got to do over and over and over again. Ronan Osnoda, you see, will do stuff with that in reels and whatnot, but it works nicely for that as well. So think about having that pattern. Another thing with the brushes here is, if you're thinking about jazz work, is how you're moving the patterns. You're doing a figure 8. Is this getting comfortable with pushing the brush against the skin and getting those different sounds and different patterns. If you're doing a full circle, 2 circles like this is important to think about, and what your hand on the back of the drum is doing. If it's actually tapping something out or just moving along, or if you're doing it open away from the body so you get even more sound, is important to think about. So let's get into the last pattern I wanted to show you. And like I said, this is fun if you get another get some different brushes as well, just to kind of, this has it's a little brighter, this one. It's nice sound as well. Got a nice little attack there. So the pattern is bump it, bump it, bump it, bump it, bump it. So you got bop it. So it's, you're doing sort of a 3 against 2. Bump, 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 bump it, bump it, bump it, down, right? So you got bump it, 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 down, down. So you have that pattern is kind of going through a bump, bump, bump. And you can fill that in. Now, there's different ways to obviously do that. Of doing, you could do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. That down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up. Or you can just do. So, I mean, for that, you're obviously just accenting, instead of going, and instead of doing something like that, you're just accenting it using this back, you're just going back and forth, and how hard you're hitting is where the accent's coming in. So, bum, bum, boom, bum, boom, boom, bum, bum, boom, boom, ba, da, boom, boom, ba, da, bum, boom, boom, bum, boom. Okay, so that you can also use the hand if you want to drop, ba, and down. Now, if you take that pattern, you can see there, that's just kind of right on the beat. We did. Hopefully you can notice I'm kind of sitting back even more. Just da-da, 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 da-da. Once again, which we obviously the West African influence there, and you can experiment with sitting back on this and the beat as much as you like, and swinging it as much, even adding even a greater sense of swing to it if you're interested. But that 3 against 2 pattern is something which you find throughout West African music. If you remember the lesson on bambula from New Orleans, of that 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, bum, 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 that da, 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 da. What this is doing is that first pattern is the same as bambula, and then that next hit in bambula just keeps repeating a bum, 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 bum. In bossa nova we have bum, 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 bum. So that second group of 3 of bum, 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 nothing, da, 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 is continuing. So that's there. It's just they've removed one of the hits. And if you're playing, filling in the time with the brush of bum, 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 bum. So it's something to think about. It's something to kind of toy with and see if you can incorporate it. I mean, some of these patterns are things that you can apply outside of bossa nova. You're like, well, I'm never going to play bossa nova. Okay, fine, but they're a wide variety of music where you can put that in. And working with the brushwork, again, that just getting a nice comfortability with the brush on the drum head is really important. It's really nice when you're accompanying different songs. If it's laid back, you want to create a sense of space, because the attack, you get a little bit more sustain with that brush, which is nice when you're playing the Bodhrán. Obviously, the decay is rather quick, right? That whole thing. This is nice. So that's a little idea about bossa nova. You can mess around with that if you like. We'll be doing more lessons, obviously, around world music and just kind of experimenting with stuff, playing with it, thinking about it, and you can do what you will with it. If you're interested in, obviously, the Bodhrán, this has been officially published by the University of Tennessee Press. This is my book here. the Bodhrán Experimentation, Innovation, and the Traditional Irish Frame Drum. It has a whole ton of stuff about makers, performance practices, recordings, pedagogy, etc. So if you're interested in that, please check it out. Like I said, there'll be a link below, but through the University of Tennessee Press. Thank you very much.